Today, on a special Chibiverse episode of the Danville Discussion.
Hello, Chibis! It is I, Kiff Chatterley, and I am so excited to be hosting the Chibiverse because today we're playing the Chibi Quiz Challenge! That's right! I'll be asking questions about our favorite Chibi adventures, and whoever gets the most points walks away with 1 million Chibi coins! Ooh. It's game time!
Hello everybody and welcome to the Danville Discussion, a podcast about all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. I'm your host Caleb Dirksen, and some of you may know me from my YouTube channel of the same name, the one and only place for some web series related to animation such as Caleb Reviews. If this is your first time listening, well, the title should give you an idea of what I'm here to talk about. Here, I talk about shows set in the Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh universe, or Dwampyverse, specifically going through each episode of either Phineas and Ferb or Hamster and Gretel, and going through all the cultural and in-universe references, some fun facts, some of my favorite gags, and anything else that might come up, and then finally, I will end things off by giving each episode a roller coaster rating. But this time, I'm gonna put both shows aside and do a special episode talking about Episode 5, which is Season 2, Episode 1 of Chibiverse, called the Chibi Quiz Challenge, which has 2 new exclusive Dwampyverse shorts for Chibi Tiny Tales. If you want to check out more episodes of the Danville Discussion, then log on to anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and then it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion website on Spotify for podcasters. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions you may have about this episode by emailing us at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the series and episode title in the subject line. Now, this is not the first time I'm reviewing an episode of Chibiverse. Last year, for Halloween, I did an episode talking about a previous episode, The Great Chibi Mix-Up, which was Season 1, Episode 3, and the reason why I did it is because, in terms of the host, it was a crossover between Phineas and Ferb and the Owl House, since the hosts of that episode were Phineas, Ferb, and Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb, and Luce from the Owl House. I also gave my thoughts on the show as a whole before talking about that episode. If you want to know my thoughts on it, here's a clip from that past episode of the Danville Discussion. But first things first, I would like to share my thoughts as a whole on the first 2 episodes of Chibiverse. Those 2 episodes that I saw were Pizza vs. Fireworks and Bad Luck Chibis. And by the way, I actually watched both of these episodes on the official YouTube channel of Disney Channel, in case you're wondering. Now, each episode has a whole audience of Chibi versions of Disney Channel and Disney television animation characters, including from franchises such as Phineas and Ferb, DuckTales, specifically the 2017 reboot, Amphibia, Big City Greens, the Ghost and Molly McGee, the Owl House, Zombies, and more. And this show has some new additions, including Kim Possible, Gravity Falls, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, The Proud Family, Gargoyles, Wander Over Yonder, and Milo Murphy's Law. That's right, Wander Over Yonder and Milo Murphy's freaking Law. Let that sink in. And a select number of Chibi characters get to host the show in each episode. For Pizza vs. Fireworks, the hosts are Molly McGee and Scratch from the Ghost and Molly McGee, and Cricket and Tilly Green from Big City Greens. And Bad Luck Chibis is hosted by Cricket and Tilly Green once again, and also Ann Boone Choi and the Planter family from Amphibia, a family of frauds consisting of eldest brother Sprig, younger sister Polly, and their grandfather Hoppadiah, also known as Hot Pop. On top of that, they managed to add actual voice acting to the show instead of the mumbling noises that they would make in the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, which I really liked the addition of, by the way. They brought back many of the voice actors behind these characters, including Brenda Song as Anne, Justin Feldbinger, Amanda Layton, and Bill Farmer as Sprig, Polly, and Hot Pop, respectively, and Bill Farmer is also famously known for voicing Goofy in various other Disney works. Also, Chris Houghton as Cricket, Marie Harrington as Tilly, Ashley Birch as Molly, Dana Snyder as Scratch, and even Dan Povenmire as Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. And I especially like that these chibi characters from different shows get to interact with one another through their voices. However, the one thing that some people were kinda disappointed by is that, aside from the segments where chibis get into goofy shenanigans as hilarious hijinks ensue, the rest of the show is just a compilation of previous Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, with the only difference being that, with the exception of the As Told by Chibi versions of Disney movies, there's a title card in a random color bordered by silhouettes of various objects from Disney properties, and above the title there's a credit reading Chibiverse Presents, and below we see what I would refer to as a gag tag. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, but I'll just call it a gag tag, where it shows a tagline for the short meant to contain some humor. And yeah, I do see in part where they're going with this. But honestly, despite the reruns of previous Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, I wouldn't say it's all that bad. It's a solid show personally. I would go and say that this is the House of Mouse of the 2020s, where you've got a group of Disney characters in the audience with some being the hosts, and they end up in all kinds of crazy situations, all while they present some cartoons of the previous work it's based on. For House of Mouse, the cartoons are based on the Mickey Mouse Works shorts, and for Chibiverse, it's Chibi Tiny Tales cartoons. So yeah, I'd say this is the closest we've ever gotten to a House of Mouse reboot. And the theme song is nice as well. The song itself does feel a bit like it would belong in Phineas and Ferb, but on another end, it also feels like something that would feel at home in Animaniacs. If anything, it even reminds me of one of the theme songs of Hysteria, a Warner Brothers show which had the same people behind Animaniacs, and it does feel like something that would be done by the late Richard Stone or the Bernstein Stephen Julie. I know it may seem like I'm going off topic, but I have seen some episodes of Hysteria myself, and it's a pretty good show. It's like Animaniacs, but it focuses more on satirizing world history, featuring historical figures like George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Napoleon Bonaparte. Back onto Chibiverse, this is a good theme song, and those are my general thoughts on the first two episodes of Chibiverse. It may not be perfect due to the usage of previous Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, but it is still a nice solid show. And when it comes to the episode I talked about, it's not much different, but I think it would probably be my favorite Chibiverse episode that I had watched so far, for not only having Phineas and Ferb characters as the hosts, but also featuring Milo Murphy and Zach Underwood from Milo Murphy's Law in their first Chibi appearances, and also having Hamster and Gretel among the Chibi audience. Plus, it also has a really solid story about them preparing a Chibi best friend disco dance-off, only for Dr. Doofenshmirtz's best friendinator to go awry to the point that it merges every best friend pair with one another, and some good humor. And that's just for the main story. This isn't counting any of the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts that were featured, most of which I enjoyed, by the way. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on Chibiverse, including the previous episode I reviewed, so with that said, let's begin talking about the Chibi Quiz Challenge. So, this episode first premiered on Disney Channel and YouTube on Saturday, September 23rd, 2023, as the 5th episode and the Season 2 premiere. The episode begins when Kiff Chatterley, the main squirrel character from, well, Kiff, hosts a new game show called the Chibi Quiz Challenge, where she'll be asking questions about everyone's favorite Chibi adventures, and whoever gets the most points will win 1 million Chibi coins. Now, I have heard of Kiff, of course, but I haven't seen a full episode of that show yet. As for the title character's voice actress, I looked it up and she's voiced by Kimiko Glenn, the same person who voiced Lena Saberwing in the DuckTales reboot and Penny Parker in the Spider-Man Spider-Verse trilogy. Speaking of DuckTales, by the way, the contestants are Flintheart Glomgold, voiced once again by Keith Ferguson, as well as Marcy Wu from Amphibia, voiced again by Haley Chu, and Suga Mama Proud from the Proud family and its reboot Louder and Prouder, voiced again by Jo Marie Payton. However, Glomgold intends to show some villainous acts like he usually does in the show, in which he plans to lie, cheat, and steal until he wins, which causes Kiff to call the security guard Vasquez from Big City Greens to kick out Glomgold, and she replaces him with another DuckTales character, Launchpad McQuack, voiced by Beck Bennett, as a substitute, where I liked his response saying, "Substitute? I thought I was a pilot, not a teacher," and the game begins, which leads into the first Chibi Tiny Tales short in the episode, a DuckTales short called Dime and Dash, originally released on Sunday, March 7th, 2021, around the time that the reboot was ending, with its title card for Chibiverse in gold yellow, text in light teal, and the gag tag reading, "These laughs are a dime a dozen," which I kinda like with that pun right there. The short finds Scrooge McDuck polishing his lucky dime and then sitting back and reading the newspaper when Magica Dispel tries to get her hands on it, only to end up fighting with Flintheart Glomgold over it, and they both try all sorts of methods to compete for the dime until it's time for Scrooge to play his bagpipe. This short, in my opinion, is pretty simple, just a bunch of fighting over a lucky dime between two DuckTales villains, but I still liked it. The next short that we have over here is another DuckTales short called Burrito Bash, which premiered on Sunday, March 14th, 2021. In this one, Scrooge is taking Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Donald out to the pool from the hotel, while Webby interests Launchpad in a burrito, going through all sorts of transportation methods until they finally land in a giant burrito and begin eating. The title card in Chibiverse has a blue background and violet to lime green text, and the gag tag reading, "Launchpad's favorite dance is salsa." I actually really like that gag tag, since salsa is the name of both a sauce and a dance, and though it implies that Launchpad dances the salsa, he actually likes salsa sauce on a burrito. Going on to Act 2, Kiff asks the first question to the contestants. Launchpad is seen flying the Sun Chaser because he is a blank, and Launchpad tries answering substitute teacher, but the answer is incorrect, so Marcy tries answering, but the moment she presses the buzzer, she gets electrocuted, thinking there's something wrong with it, and then Suga Mama presses the buzzer and answers that Launchpad is a duck-billed fool. At that point, Kiff asks the judges, literal judges from court, which include one of the barrister ghosts from the Ghost and Molly McGee, Judge Kitty Kitty Meow Meow Face Schwartzstein from Gravity Falls, and the prosecutor from the Wind in the Willow segment of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. And they all accept Suga Mama's answer, even though the real correct response was that Launchpad is a pilot, with Suga Mama earning 100 points for her answer. They then move on to the next round, which contains some Phineas and Ferb shorts, and this is it, people. We are at the moment where we shall talk about the two original Dwampyverse shorts for this Chibiverse episode. The first one being Candace Against the Universe as told by Chibi, which is basically the second Phineas and Ferb movie being told in the style of Chibi. The only difference is that this short gives us one other in-universe reference that the movie itself didn't give us. When the kids go through the portal, I spotted Phineas and Ferb's second dimension counterparts from the first Phineas and Ferb movie across the second dimension. Also, for one cultural reference, when Ferb shows Dr. Doofenshmirtz the video of Vanessa being sucked into the alien spaceship, I noticed that the sound clip they used for Doof gasping is actually Banjo when he gasps for air after swimming back up to the surface in the Banjo-Kazooie video games. In fact, let's hear those two clips right now. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stock cartoon sound effects from Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers in a lot of later Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, but I never thought they would use a sound clip of a Rareware video game character in this one. And speaking of Banjo-Kazooie, I'm already doing a gameplay series of it for my gaming show, Caleb Plays, and it still really is a good game. One of the best 3D platformers I've ever played, period. If you want to check it out, the first 4 parts of it are on my YouTube right now, all you have to do is just search for Caleb Plays Banjo-Kazooie, and I'll have the playlist linked on the upper right corner of the YouTube video of this episode, and I'll have new live streams of it every Friday at 7 p.m. Mountain on both Twitch and YouTube. But anyways, with my thoughts on this new original short right here, it is honestly as good as the movie it's based on, one of my biggest highlights of this episode, and the chibi animation looks even better than what Snipple did during the first part of the movie, especially with the addition of symbols like question marks when Candace and Vanessa either wonder what's happening or get confused, and a spiral when Doof is bored, wedges, purple shading, sweat drops, and full white circles with thick black outlines when some characters are shocked, Perry being knocked around in space by the asteroids, and curves and lines when some characters like Super Big Doctor laugh like their sly old selves. As the first original Chibi Tiny Tales short for Chibiverse, it really is worth it. The next short is actually an existing Chibi Tiny Tales short, which is a crossover of various Disney television animation shows, including Phineas and Ferb, Amphibia, The Owl House, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Big City Greens, Gravity Falls, DuckTales, and The Proud Family. The short is called Chibi's Out to the Ball Game, which was first released on Saturday, July 15th, 2023, and as it suggests, it finds all of these characters playing baseball, with Dr. Doofenshmirtz trying to take over the game as a result of him not being allowed to play yet. The title card in Chibiverse is all in cyan, and the gag tag reads, "Doof is gonna put this game on ice," which refers to the fact that at the end of the short, Doof uses his Freezinator to get his revenge, but it gives the rest of the Chibis the idea to play hockey instead. It's a very nice crossover short for me personally. And then we have the other original short for this episode, which is a crossover between all three Dwampyverse shows, Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, and Hamster and Gretel, called Binocular Blues. Now, this short first premiered in France on Tuesday, July 11th, 2023, and I was able to watch this short on the Disney Channel France YouTube channel first, but considering that it wasn't shown in the US or anywhere else until it aired as part of this episode of Chibiverse, might as well count it as an original short. It starts in Phineas and Ferb's backyard, where Phineas looks through his binoculars and spies an apple in an apple tree, and because they're no ordinary binoculars, he cranks up the switch and teleports the apple into his hand, and he eats the apple. When it goes to the special Chibiverse title card, it's all in blue, and the gag tag reads, "They're in for a treat." Get it? You will. It's not the best pun, but I do like how it refers to the apple tree, and that Phineas and Ferb are in for the crossover of their lives since the Phineas and Ferb effect from Milo Murphy's Law. So then Phineas passes the binoculars over to Ferb, and he spies an alien ship, cranks the switch, and teleports it to crash land into their backyard. When Candace sees this from inside the house, she goes crazy over it, while the UFO hovers over the apple tree and gives it evil powers, throwing apples at the brothers, until Hamster and Gretel arrive to fight it off, but then get planted in the ground and stuffed with apples. It then gives Phineas the idea to use his binoculars to teleport the tree to the park, where Milo is playing fetch with Diogi, and because Milo is the one who gets bad luck all the time, hence that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, the tree attempts to go after the two and successfully grabs them, but because the tire on the tree was hooked onto one of the springy horses, the tree releases Diogi and gets flung into the air with Milo, but Milo, being well prepared, releases his parachute to land to safety. After the tree lands back in its original place, Hamster and Gretel place the spaceship over it, and the aliens take away the tree's powers and our heroes push it out of sight, just as Candace drags Linda to see the sentient tree, which isn't sentient anymore, leaving Candace depressed, and that's the end of Binocular Blues. This is not only another great short, but this is also the crossover I've always wanted, on top of the ever-so-splendid chibi animation and comic expressions. I'd also love to have a pair of binoculars that magically teleports things wherever you want them. Moving to Act 3, Kiff asks the next question, what character in Binocular Blues is known for having bad luck? Marcy tries to answer, but she still gets electrocuted, but then Suga Mama answers that little nerd Milo Murphy, which is the correct answer. And then they do a parody of that skit from Let's Make a Deal, in which Lord Hater from Wander Over Yonder, also voiced once again by Keith Ferguson, declares that Suga Mama has won a new Snoozy Boy lounge chair, with Mabel Pines from Gravity Falls as the hostess presenting it. I love Suga Mama's enthusiasm when she says, "Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about."
And we're back. Next question. What character in Binocular Blues is known for having bad luck?
Oh, that little nerd, Milo Murphy.
Correct! Tell her what she's won.
Suga Mama has won a brand new Snoozy Boy lounge chair.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Then Kiff gives Suga Mama the option to either keep her Snoozy Boy or risk it all for what's in the Mystery Shack, which I like that it's a reference to the actual Mystery Shack from Gravity Falls. It's just a gift box shaped like the roof of the real Mystery Shack. And the audience calls for Suga Mama to go for the box, which Suga Mama accepts, only to get grunkled by Stanley Pines with his signature dirty lounge chair. I really like that they chose to call it that as a reference because it's kind of like the Zonk from Let's Make a Deal, but with Grunkle Stan. Because of this, Suga Mama grabs Kiff by the collar and demands that she get a new lounge chair or she'll send her dog Puff after the judges, and talk about not only unfair play, but also animal abuse. Which leads to Kiff surrendering and saying that Suga Mama wins the chair after all. It then takes us to a Ghost and Molly McGee short called Scratch the 300th Wheel, which came out on Saturday, April 15th, 2023. The short follows Scratch as he tries desperately to find his own happy place on the audience bench at the talent show since he keeps getting distracted by everyone else, but after he fails countless times, he decides to build a friend out of the snacks he has, and after he eats it all due to his hunger, the McGee family, Libby, and Jeffrey come by to comfort him. In Chibiverse, the title card is in purple with blue text, and the gag tag is "Sometimes food is your only friend." As I am a casual fan of the Ghost and Molly McGee, this short is pretty simple, yet still a very cute one. The next short is from Kiff, and it's called Shock and Claw, aired on Saturday, September 9th, 2023, just 2 weeks before this episode aired. It's about Kiff and her bunny friend Barry playing a claw game, but the claw gets stuck, and so Kiff goes inside the machine, entering a secret underground world inside the thing, and she goes after an underground troll, but he manages to climb the claw, and thus fixing it, and escapes, and with Kiff still trapped inside, Barry uses the claw to rescue her, and at the same time, they both end up with some prizes, and that's that. The title card is in wooden brown with blue and green text, and the title being surrounded by an orange outline, and the gag tag reads, "So that's why those toys are so hard to win." I know that in reality, the reason why toys are so hard to win with a claw machine is because the prize ends up getting loose and falls back into place, but the joke here is that the claw is stuck when Kiff and Barry are trying to play it. I found that gag tag kinda weird after watching this short. I also found the short itself weird because I haven't seen Kiff yet. And the next short is one that I've already reviewed before on this podcast when I reviewed the Great Chibi Mix-Up, and that one is the Ghost and Molly McGee short, Scratch's Sugar Rush, which was known in that episode as Scratch's Candy Craze. If you want to hear me talk about the plot of that short, go listen to that episode. The difference here is that in the title card, the gag tag now reads, "That's a concerning amount of sugar." Still, this is a solid short for me personally, and I really love Molly's Sorcerer Mickey outfit as a major fan of the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment from Fantasia. Now, on to Act 4, Kiff is about to ask the next question, and the contestant who gets it right will also win a brand new used van, where I actually really love that they chose Kevin with his minivan from Hamster and Gretel, and that they even got Michael Cimino to reprise his role.
And we're back! The contestant who gets this next question right will also win a brand new used van.
Wait! I didn't agree to this!
The next question is, in Scratch's Sugar Rush, what was Andrea dressed as? But then we see Suga Mama sleeping on a lounge chair, Marcy's podium is on fire after a series of electrocutions, and then Launchpad rings in and says, "I've got it, I'm a pilot." But the correct answer was a witch, because that's what she was in the shorts, and since no one answered it correctly, no one wins the van, which relieves Kevin for a moment until Kiff asks Vasquez to take the van to the prize vault. After all that, it goes to an Amphibia short called Frogs in Space, which premiered on Saturday, May 8th, 2022, which was 6 days before Amphibia ended its run. In this one, Anne takes the Planter family to the Space Museum, but the Planters get into a space shuttle and blast off into space, where they overcome a meteor shower and meet some aliens. For the title card, the background is purple and the text is in green, with the gag tag reading, "This one feels pretty straightforward. Frogs go to space. Have fun." A very simple way to sum this short up, but I still liked it. Next is a Big City Green short called Turkey Tussle, which originally came out near American Thanksgiving on Saturday, November 21st, 2020. This short finds the Green family getting ready for a Thanksgiving feast, eating lots of turkey until only one drumstick is left on the roast, and whoever gets that last drumstick gets to eat it. In the end, however, it's their pet goat Melissa who ends up winning. Here, the title card is a yellow background with yellow captions and an orange title, and the gag tag reads, "Personally, I'm rooting for the turkey." I find that one hilarious because the only way for the turkey to either eat itself or another cooked turkey is if it were still alive, which it isn't, so only the Greens themselves can fight over the drumstick. Talk about cannibal turkeys. And then there's another Amphibia short, Selfie Safari, debuted on Sunday, April 17th, 2022, where Anne takes Sprig, Polly, and Hop Pop to the zoo, and while she's away to get some snacks, a map, and some souvenirs, the Planters decide to take a picture with a lion, only for the lion to go after the frogs until he befriends them. I also spotted a cameo of Grime the Toad in this short. The title card is in green with yellow text, and a yellow and green title outlined in orange, and the gag tag is, "It's a cute pic and I'm not lying," as in a pun on an actual lion. And that takes us into Act 5, in which the next question is, in Selfie Safari, our Amphibia friends spot a toad in the zoo that resembles which character? Marcy, with her buzzer finally fixed, rings in and answers Captain Grime because she already knows she's a character from Amphibia, she's good friends with Anne and Sasha, and she has met Grime before in the Third Temple for Pete's sake. Of course, that's the correct answer, scoring her 100 points, and Marcy responds, "Maybe my luck is turning around," and Kiff agrees because now she gets to play a special bonus game, Blorko, which is obviously a parody of Plinko from The Price is Right. Definitely one of the greatest game shows I watched back in the day, though I grew up more watching the Drew Carey era than the Bob Barker era. I also liked when Marcy said, "Maybe my luck is turning around," because not only did she realize she's finally having good luck, but she's now got a chance to play a parody of a famous Price is Right game. But anyways, like with Plinko, the objective is to drop a disc into the board and the contestant will win whatever prize it falls into. So Marcy drops the disc, but as it bounces between the pegs and falls down, it suddenly bounces between two pegs left and right rapidly, then ends up flying out of the board and damaging Marcy's podium once again, and Kiff decides to show some more Chibi Tiny Tales shorts while they try to fix the problem. Which takes us to another short that I've already reviewed. In fact, after the Big City Green short that comes after the first one, there's another one based on the same show as this one that I've already done, and they're both Hamster and Gretel shorts, with Museum Mayhem, which was called Fight at the Museum in the Great Chibi Mix-Up, and Laundry Day. If you want to know my full thoughts on Museum Mayhem, you can check out episode 6A of the podcast, where I review the first 3 Chibi Tiny Tales shorts of Hamster and Gretel, as well as the theme song Takeover with Kevin, because I've got a lot to say about that one. And if you want to listen to my review of Laundry Day, it's in episode 15B after I talk about the Phineas and Ferb original pitch. I'll have both of those linked in a card on the upper right corner of the video on YouTube if you're watching or listening to this over there. But the only things I have to say about both of them is that they're very good shorts for me, and the title cards. In this episode for Museum Mayhem, it has a blue title, and the gag tag is, you gotta admit, Venus to Milo Murphy is pretty funny. And I do agree with that. And for Laundry Day, the title card is in blue with yellow captions and the title in orange with yellow and blue outlines, and the gag tag says, even superheroes need clean clothes, which is true. Anyways, the Big City Green short in between is called Grandma vs. Grandson, which premiered on Saturday, September 2nd, 2023. It follows Cricket and Grandma Alice Green as they prank each other until Tilly pranks both of them by putting snakes inside the trophy. And the title card comes in a reddish brown with a purple title outlined in yellow, the captions in yellow, and its gag tag reads, "The family that pranks together stays together." Another simple yet decent short in my eyes. Now, Act 6 takes place in the final round, in which Kiff asks this question: in Laundry Day, what villain are Hamster and Gretel fighting? And prompts the contestants to write down their final answers, like in the final Jeopardy round. However, Suga Mama changed her screen to a wrestling match because, as she claims, she doesn't have time for some silly quiz show. Marcy tried to write an answer, but then her screen exploded, and as for Launchpad, he didn't know the answer, so he started drawing a question mark, but then he forgot how to do that, and yet, because of that, his answer came out on screen with a squiggly line over a dot, looking like an exclamation point, and of course the correct answer is Professor Exclamation, and the judges, along with Puff, accept the answer, which means that Launchpad won the Chibi Quiz Challenge, and so Anne and Sasha flip their number 1 boards from Marcy to Launchpad, and with that, he wins the grand prize of 1 million Chibi coins, only to find out that the prize is gone. While they solve the mystery of the missing prize, we get one more Chibi Tiny Tales short in this episode, which is just a special message to celebrate Disney Channel's 40th anniversary in 2023. It finds various Disney Channel characters baking a birthday cake. The one joke that was surprising to see is that Miley Stewart pours some sugar into the bowl before turning into Hannah Montana and adding some spice, and Molly and Scratch add some nice things. Get the joke? Sugar, spice, and everything nice? That's a reference to the Powerpuff Girls, since those were some of the ingredients that the titular girls were created from, with the other being Chemical X.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X. Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born! Using their ultra superpowers, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup have dedicated their lives to fighting crime and the forces of evil!
It's a nice little tribute to Disney Channel over the last 40 years. For the final act of this, the mystery is over, for Flintheart Glomgold has been caught stealing the 1 million Chibi coins for a stupid reason that he's a pretty one-note duck. The truth is that Chibi coins aren't real money, but are tokens for the Chibi arcade, and so Launchpad passes the tokens to everyone, and Kiff also throws in Kevin's minivan, where Launchpad tests it out, but crashes it into things, freaking Kevin out even more and damaging the podiums. So Hamster and Vasquez get some fire extinguishers to put out the fire, and as this episode ends, I find it very surreal to hear Beck Bennett voicing both Hamster and Launchpad back and forth, as well as Launchpad responding to the sound of Hamster's voice. It's like Beck Bennett is talking to himself. Now, let's go over the rest of my thoughts on the episode. The chibi animation, of course, is once again very good, with some cute parts, wacky expressions, stellar effects, and a creative use of speech bubbles with symbols for the shorts. And speaking of the shorts, again, many of them are really good, but my least favorite would probably be Shock and Claw. Not that I hated it or anything, it's still okay, but it's because, again, I haven't seen a single episode of Kiff, so I just find it weird. But I'm sure you all know what are my favorite shorts of this episode, because I've reviewed them in full, and those are the exclusive Dwampyverse shorts with Candace Against the Universe as told by Chibi and Binocular Blues. Not only are they some of the best Chibi Tiny Tales shorts I could have asked for, but they are also the first ones to be original to this episode, at least in the US. I find myself really happy that after pretty much nothing but previous existing shorts that this show would present to try and serve the main plot similarly to House of Mouse, finally we have at least one new original short for Chibiverse. When it comes to Candace Against the Universe as told by Chibi though, there are a few things I forgot to mention when I talk about that. This is the short that finally gave us Chibi versions of other Phineas and Ferb characters, including Isabella, Buford, and Baljeet. We're finally healing as a society, people! But the weird thing about Chibi Buford to me is, why does he remind me of Bart Simpson? I mean, think about it. You have the cute chubby head instead of Buford's usual head, and you have the spiky hair just like Bart. The difference is that neither his skin nor his hair are yellow. They're the same color as your average Caucasian person with brown hair. Now, for the main segments that make up the plot of this episode, it might not be quite as fantastic as the two original shorts I talked about, but it's still very good, and I really enjoyed the humor too. I can't deny that the game show theme is very creative, as it also parodies other game shows, including, of course, Jeopardy, The Price is Right, and Let's Make a Deal. And the last short of each batch in between acts as a solid plot device for each question in the game. So, I think there's no doubt saying this episode has now replaced the Great Chibi Mix-Up as the best Chibiverse episode, in my opinion. With great Chibi animation, a good plot setup, an excellent game show style, a lot of funny humor, Chibi shorts I enjoyed, Chibi shorts that I really loved, and Chibi shorts that are new to this episode, you have succeeded in blowing me away as a Dwampyverse fan who watches Chibiverse. Congratulations! And now it is time that I end this off with our roller coaster rating. Now, out of 10 roller coasters, how many would I give this episode of Chibiverse? Because it's gonna be a tough choice for me, honestly. Honestly, after a lot of thinking, I would give this one a perfect 10 roller coasters full of Chibi coins out of 10. Yeah, I found a couple minor flaws in some of the Chibi Tiny Tales shorts, but everything else about this episode is excellent, including the 2 premiere shorts, and I highly recommend it. It represents everything that Chibiverse should be. Now let's go ahead and go to our reporter with our Tumblr poll results from the last big episode. Hello listeners, this is your reporter here once again, and I might be late for this, but I hope you had a splendid Halloween, because now it's time once again for our Danville Discussion Tumblr poll results. We asked our listeners, Which of these 3 Dwampyverse Halloween episodes is your favorite? The choices were A. One Good Scare Ought to Do It from Phineas and Ferb, B. Milo Murphy's Halloween Screamatorium from Milo Murphy's Law, or C. The Night Marionette from Hamster and Gretel. With 5.4%, some listeners said The Night Marionette. 40.9% said it was Milo Murphy's Halloween Screamatorium. But 53.8% said their favourite was Phineas and Ferb's very own One Good Scare Ought to Do It. And this winner ought to do these listeners some good too. There were 93 votes in total. So there you have it. I'll see you next time after I've finished having dinner with the ghost of Roddy McDowell. This is the reporter signing out. Say hi to our lovely listeners for me, will you, Mr. McDowell? Hello from the planet of the apes! Thank you, reporter and ghost of Roddy McDowell. May Roddy rest in peace. For my pick, though, my favorite out of these 3 would have to be One Good Scare Ought to Do It. Of course, the main plot is really good, with the Perry and Doofenshmirtz side of the story being the highlight as usual. The songs are also very good, with One Good Scare being the best one in the episode. The animation, while not perfect, is still highly wacky and expressive at times, and the humor is consistent and top-notch, though I would not want to encounter Susie Johnson in real life. Milo Murphy's Halloween Screamatorium is a close second, and The Night Marionette I have yet to review in full, but that one does have a few other minor issues, not to mention that it doesn't really have a lot to do with Halloween, though I still really liked it. So, One Good Scare Ought to Do It is a winner to me. But now I have something that I've been thinking about for a while now. Currently, I'm trying to review the rest of Hamster and Gretel's first season before I fully get back into the Phineas and Ferb reviews, but I somehow haven't done much of that late this year, let alone every Saturday. Not only that, but I also don't want to run too short on ideas for new polls at the end of every full episode, and I want to be able to work on my other projects such as my animated film reviews, my other kinds of videos, and my artwork. So I confidently announced that I will put my Twitter polls on hiatus for a while, and after the next episode, I will be recording new episodes and releasing them every Saturday at a later date instead of immediately after I finish editing them, unless I have to do some Danville Discussion news or something. This should also give me the opportunity to improve the quality of my episodes so that I focus more on the quality and less on the quantity. I also have 2 reviews that I want to get done this Christmas by the end of the year, including my anticipated review of The Emperor's New Groove, and a review of an animated snow or Christmas movie. What it is a mystery right now, because in 2021 I did Norm of the North Family Vacation, and last year I did In Search of Santa, and both movies were absolutely terrible. Well, technically, I also did The Nightmare Before Christmas last year, but I did that during Halloween because it's both a Halloween movie and a Christmas movie, and that one was actually really good. But I hope to God that this review isn't another Norm of the North movie, because I have had enough of that franchise at this point, as I have made it no secret. If I do get that review done this year, I'll reveal what I'm doing once I've finished it and put it up for early access on my Patreon. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing with the Danville Discussion. Tumblr polls are on hiatus for a while, and soon I'm going to start recording new episodes and releasing them every Saturday at a later date instead of immediately after editing is done. So that's what's going to change right here, and that's all that I've got to talk about right now, so thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Danville Discussion. As for me, you can find me on my Facebook page at Real Caleb Dirksen, on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok at Caleb Dirksen2 with the number 2 at the end and all in lowercase, on my alternate Twitter page at Caleb the PNF Guy, on Instagram at Caleb.Dirksen for my main page or at Caleb Flynn Fletcher for my alternate page, on Threads at Caleb.Dirksen, on DeviantArt at CalebDirksen20, and on Blue Sky Social at CalebDirksen2.bsky.social, where I'll send you an invite code on any other social site to let you in. You can also find me on Discord by entering the username Caleb Dirksen, all in one word and all in lowercase. And if you go to the invite link in the description below, it'll also invite you to my Discord server so that you can talk with me about anything, including this podcast or my other content. You can also find me on YouTube. Just search for Caleb Dirksen, that's Doerksen for my last name, and look for the icon of me as a soldier. And if you want to support my work and earn some great rewards at once, which includes getting access to my content before anyone else, including my videos, my podcast episodes, anything like that, then you can become a patron at patreon.com/CalebDirksen. Special thanks to everyone who has followed or supported me on Patreon, including Kalela Shaw, Sue Friend, Brock Clifton Friend, and my guest patron Gilbert Gann. It really means a lot to me. As for this podcast, we are available to listen on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, Good Pods, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you can also find us on Spotify for podcasters by using your Apple or Android device or going on the web at anchor.fm/Caleb-Dirksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion page on Spotify for podcasters. If you have listened to this episode on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast service and you liked what you just heard, do you mind doing us a favor and please subscribe, leave a review, and give us 5 stars if you enjoyed this? That would really help us get discovered by the public. And if you were listening to this episode as a video on YouTube, then go ahead and tap that like button on the video and leave us a little comment with your thoughts on this episode of Chibiverse. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions by sending us an email at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the series and episode title in the subject line. Join us next time, and I'm gonna get back into Hamster and Gretel and review episode 8 of that show, which has I'm Bored and Cutie and the Beast. Tune in next time for the newest episode of the Danville Discussion with all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond, and with that said, thank you guys once again for listening, and until next time, this is Caleb, over and out. This podcast was created strictly and only for entertainment and information purposes. It is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company, Disney Television Animation, or their affiliates. All and any names, images, clips, sounds, or other items related to Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, Hamster and Gretel, and other Disney properties are trademarks and or copyrights of their respective holders. All original content from this podcast is the intellectual property of the Danville Discussion and the host or hosts running the podcast unless otherwise noted.
Oh boy, let's test this baby out!
Hey, my wrestling!
Don't worry, we're on it. Whoa, I like the sound of that hamster's voice.